Hi, I'm Verdaillia Turner, and this is Let's Talk. And today we are interviewing for District 7 at large, Atlanta Public Schools. And our guest is Mrs. Tamara Jones. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
And forgive me, to my right, I know people are gonna laugh.
It's Omar Ali with Ali Development.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so you're running for the position that you are now holding. How long have you served on the Atlanta Board of Education?
A little over 18 months.
Okay, and the position, is that an appointed position that you have now?
No,
or-
I was elected 2 years ago.
Okay, because we had those staggered elections going on now.
Well, this is the staggered election. Yeah, that was the last one that we were all on the ballot.
Uh-huh,
And so all of us odd number seats drew the short straw. So
Okay.
we got the 2-year term,
Hmm.
and so we all have to come back and run again for our seat.
what do you do for a living?
I am an architect and urban planner.
Okay, is it, you working for a company or are you
Nope,
private?
not at the moment. I have worked for a variety of different companies, but I do mostly consulting at the time.
Okay, okay, I'm glad to know that, you hear that?
Yeah,
She's
I was
okay,
aware.
so- all right, because he has a lot of questions about facilities. Tell us, since you've been on the Board of Education, why did you run, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of the board as you see them?
I ran 2 years ago because I have had kids in the system this is my 17th year now. So I have 3 children who have been through Atlanta Public Schools from kindergarten all the way through graduation. So my oldest is a senior in college now, and my middle child is a junior in college, and I still have a sophomore in high school. So I have seen APS kind of peeking under the hood for a really long time. So we started when Beverly Hall was superintendent. And I've been involved in the school system ever since, working PTAs, PTOs, what was then local school council, which I actually prefer to our GO teams. So local school council, GO teams, the cluster advisory teams, the district executive committee, the SPLOST oversight committee. I served on that one for a number of years, and the district excellent schools committee. So I've been serving APS for well over a decade. And some of the most beneficial interactions I had were serving at that district level, where you get to work with people from all of the different clusters, and we all realized, working on those committees, that this is the synergy that we really need to move forward, is to get everybody pulling together. So some of the things I had seen over the course of being a parent were that some of our issues that are plaguing us the most are systemic. Like they're systemic and procedural and not necessarily unique to one part of the city. And I really thought that, given the way, I've seen the district, evolve over time, that there's been some consistent things: lack of process, lack of structure, lack of communication, lack of really transparent two-way engagement, in our governance teams. And it just kept going and going and going. But also, with the facilities thing, the lack of being able to get to the end of a comprehensive master plan and put in, mechanisms that work. And so leaders have come and go, but I thought that some of the changes that needed to happen were at the board level. And that is coming up with some norms and procedures and organizational processes. I think that this board has a good variety of skill sets and backgrounds, to sort of look at things in multitudes of perspectives. I really appreciate that. For the first time in 150 years, it's all women, and we celebrated that.
Some men wouldn't like that, but anyway, go ahead.
But it was an important milestone,
Uh-huh.
that for the longest history of the school board, it was mostly men. And then, so I think having a board that works well together and can dialogue is really good, but also coming in and establishing some of the procedures and the norms so that you don't have 9 completely different expectations of how things are supposed to go.
What are you looking for in your next superintendent?
I'm looking for somebody that is very collaborative. We need somebody very collaborative, somebody that can unify the entire district, because it's going to take all of us moving together, to really get us to that next stage. It's only when we're all owning the success of all children that we're really going to move the needle on this. And so the collaboration is key. Being not afraid to power share. And by that, I mean really give those GO teams and the cluster advisory teams the advisory role they were intended to be. So if you remember the old local school councils, according to state law, they served as an advisory body. So teachers are on them, community members, parents, and in the old days, we could compel, we could write advice to the board and to the superintendent, and we could also compel them to come answer questions that we had. When the GO team, when we went to the charter system, the GO teams, which are the successor to the local school councils, that part of it was removed. So there's no protocol, there's no actual advisory voice, and it's really important to restore that. What I have seen over time is that the reason it's not done is fear. On the behalf of the leaders, they fear losing control. And it won't happen, because that voice is going to be heard one way or the other.
It's going to come out one way or the other.
That's correct. And what I advocate for is giving them an actual formal voice and bringing more into it. And one of the analogies I paint, which is unique to Atlanta, and I really think we could make something of this, is that GO teams are a lot like our city structure. So they're like neighborhood organizations. And then cluster advisory teams are like NPUs. And then our district executive committee is like an APAB. And so if we started to look at it that way and really put systems in place where we went to these bodies that are comprised of teachers, staff members, community members, parents, families, where we sought their advice, like we do with NPUs, in the city, that would be an actual authentic mechanism. And people would feel like, okay, kind of like city council, they don't always take the advice of the NPU, but at least you've been heard.
For the sake of this interview, does every school have a GO team?
Every school, I think, does have a GO team. There was one that was in non-compliant, and it was one of our partner schools that had not had a GO team. I believe they're trying to get one up if they haven't already.
And who's on the GO team? Who chooses the GO teams?
So the GO teams are elected. So the teachers elect the teachers. The principal recommends a community member for appointment, and then that's voted on by the body. And then the families, the parents, caregivers elect the parents.
And that's, in theory, that sounds real good, but do you know how many GO teams are not functioning out of how many schools we have? It's about 60 something?
They all function. A lot of them function with support, like external support, but that support can sometimes be interpreted as
Interference?
Not interference, scripted,
Yeah,
checking
okay.
a box. And so I think that a lot of the feedback I'm getting is that they just feel that they're perfunctory and they're not living up to the spirit of it. And I know that they can, because I've seen it work back when we were doing cluster planning, when we went to the kind of signature program model and the cluster planning, where particularly the cluster advisory teams were very well attended. We had a lot of community members. You would advertise. You would, there was a lot of dialogue going on. I think a lot of that has fallen by the wayside. Some of it was COVID, but a lot of it was, quite honestly, fear.
Do you think Atlanta Public Schools is doing a good job in actually communicating to all of their communities how it operates, how decisions are made, how the community can affect decisions and affect their schools, and could it do a better job at it, or do you think it's doing a
No, communication has been one of the reasons why I ended up running in the first place, because communication has been an issue for a long time. So it's not specific to any one administration. So there's two aspects of that. One is the administrative piece of it, from the district administration coming to the schools, coming to the families. Getting that information has been really tough. We switched, so there for a while we were kind of flexibility and autonomy. We pushed everything down to the school level, which meant that the principal, was in charge of everything, which is kind of inefficient, when you have a lot of things that are coming out from the board, not the board, but the administration's perspective. What we need is a comprehensive internal communication strategy. That was one thing that when I got on the board, I kept trying to tell people is that, a communication plan is not the same thing as PR.
Yeah.
That's something different. So, how you do it, what channels you go through, how you're going to reach all of the people. You're going to have different channels, different frequencies, different messages, but it has to be totally thought out from the beginning. And that is what I hope for us to get to. The other one is the board. The board also needs to be putting out, timely, consistent information. And so board member Howard and I have been working on a board community engagement plan, so that people will understand more where they can interact with us, how that goes. But it's a work in progress. We have a lot of work to do.
What committees do you serve on presently?
Policy committee and board development and the joint committee with the city and the county. And that one.
That's a new one, right?
Nope, it's a new old one. So it's one that was created by, what do you call that? It's not legislation, by the city council.
The charter? I meant
Legislation, yeah.
Okay.
So they created it. So it was the City Joint Committee on Education. So it was intended to be 3 board members, 3 members of City Council. And it never really got traction because it was a lot, quite frankly, we talk about this now that it's been rebooted. It was a lot of politicians sitting in a room talking to each other, and nothing really gets done. So after a few years of remaining dormant, we kicked it back up, with this new mayor, this new city council. And it has been pretty effective. What we did that recently was add county commissioners. So we've got a county commissioner from Fulton County and one from DeKalb County, so that we're trying to get how we can all come together to support the full needs of all of our Atlanta youth, because it's going to take all of us. The counties have the behavioral and mental health and physical health side. The city has, the Parks and Rec, a lot of the things at their disposal. And then we have, from the school system, our toolkit, and we're trying to figure out how to make that work. One of the things we did, and this was something that I pushed, was, try to go after that low-hanging fruit. So we rewrote an MOU with the city, Parks and Rec, and APS, where Atlanta Public Schools swim teams were going to be able to use the city natatoriums for our high school swim season. And in exchange, APS recruited teenagers for free lifeguard training. And they got jobs at $15.50 an hour last summer as lifeguards, and the city got to keep its pools open last summer. So there's so many more win-wins that we can do like that. That's why I'm excited about that particular.
Figuring out the resources that everybody brings to the table and then how to make it work.
Exactly. And part of doing that is bringing in your people from your respective organizations that actually do that work, because us politicians, we come and go. So what we're trying to do is we're right now creating these subcommittees where we pull the different people from the organizations together, so that outlives, I'm not going to be here forever. None of those council members are going to be there forever. But if you create a structure, that outlives any one of us, then work keeps going, and it becomes much less about personality.
Okay. So let's talk about facilities. Facilities have a lot of power within APS. They can make or break a community with their timelines or even their recommendations. How do we hold facilities accountable? Question number 1. And number 2, some of the administrations that's with facilities have been in place for 15 years. Do you think it's time for new administration as well? So those are my 2 questions for right now.
Well, who's in what positions is not for the board to decide. I mean, we hire one person, and that's the superintendent. So those decisions are not, something that we make. What we can do is set expectations around how we want, to treat the facilities, and that was another reason why I ran, was because we did have so many blighted, unused facilities, in the city. And after seeing how, I was one of the ones that advocated for David T. Howard to come back online, and seeing what that did to rehabilitate that neighborhood, which was already on the way up, but let's be fair. It has a huge impact. We have enough properties, to press some into service for the public good, and public good and private good are the same in a lot of aspects. So what I advocated for was, I asked the facilities to please, when we come, so part of it was facilities master plan. So let me back up a little bit. The facilities master plan started before the pandemic. So that was before I got into office, which is a good exercise to do. Part of that exercise was identifying through a rubric, properties we considered to be surplus, meaning we didn't think we're going to need them for the next 30, 50 years. And then those that we thought we might need in the future because they're not making any more dirt, so we would hold those but try to figure out a way to use them. My argument was we need a thorough, transparent process, because I've been here since the 90s and I saw a lot of those dealings of how we got relieved of properties.
How they got awarded.
Yeah, we got relieved of properties in a way that I do think was to the disadvantage of communities.
So I definitely agree with transparency, but part of the problem that I see with facilities is the timeline. Let's take the Lakewood property, because I have a property directly in front of Lakewood Elementary. We first approached APS under Christopher 4 years ago and met with facilities. 4 years into it, and the decisions still haven't been made. And so when you forecast the cost, it's actually doing the community a disservice. Construction cost and interest rate is going to now cost 40% more. And so it makes it even more difficult for affordability. So that's going to roll back down to the tenants, apartments, buildings that someone may want to build. So that delay by facilities inadvertently or deliberately has cost an additional 40% on the overall plan to build. Construction costs and interest rates, yes. And so we have to look at the timeline. At some particular point, it hurts the community by continuing to deliberate, by continuing to put more plans in place. We have to just take action.
So the delay that you're talking about was when they froze, selling anything until they decided to come up with this process.
But it's been 2 years with the process now.
Yes. So, but it's been under development. So the timeline was was about a year ago, November 22. We were asked, once we'd identified what the properties were, and we had 16 surplus properties, 8 of which are redevelopment potentials, right? Which one of them is Lakewood. We were asked as a board to rank our prioritized uses for our properties, and affordable housing was one. These are all kind of equal: affordable housing, community services, and early education. So that was November of 22, and then in March of 23, the facilities department came up with what they presented us, a week or two ago.
So a couple things. Community services doesn't work in blighted low-income areas. It just doesn't work. We've had that so often in low-income areas to where community services, it doesn't spur the economics that we want at all. And so, in my opinion, that shouldn't be a top priority. Then affordable, we all want affordability, but we can't concentrate that in one particular area. So the Lakewood is one particular area to where, and that's just one, and other areas have the same particular pro forma as well. We can't over-concentrate it with affordability. And the second thing is community services, again, has to be looked at in a different light because there are already many there. And so would you agree or not disagree? Would you agree or not disagree that each school building should be separated and looked at a little different, not a blanket on all of them?
Absolutely.
And so in some places, affordability, absolutely, but the Lakewood area in particular has to be looked at in under a different lens.
Well, every property does have to be looked at separately because you can't put an auditorium, for instance, on every piece of property. So some of them are going to have, but a lot of it has to do with community needs, community desires, all of that. But what I was happy to see in this last go around were them focusing on mixed use, and one of the mixed uses that they had there as a potential was mixed housing and commercial/retail.
Yeah.
So that was one of the uses. And so I still think, when you have all of those multiple mixed uses, it doesn't prevent anything from happening. And the only thing that's on the books, so to speak, is the board policy about the percentage of units that are deemed affordable. So if you had 100 units, if you're doing residential, we would say as a board, because it's board policy that was adopted in 2017, that 15% of them, or 15 units, would be at 80% AMI. And AMI is the metro region AMI. So for a family of 4, that would be $96,000 income for a year. So it would be 80% of that, and 15 of those 100 units. And then 10 of those 100 units would be at 60% AMI, which is about 60% AMI is about 57,000.
So overall, 25% of whatever the amount of units that a developer is going to have.
And the rest of it could be market rate.
Okay.
And then you'd have your affordable, your commercial potential, or whatever other piece of mixed use everybody decides on. And then what happens is it gets opened up for bids, so all developers can bid on it. So
speaking on the bidding process, how will facilities submit proposals? Let's say if 10 companies submitted a proposal, are they going to narrow it down out of that 10 and pick 3 to present to the board? How would they submit it to the board?
I don't know the details of that.
Okay.
Yet. They're still working on that. One of the things, it depends on if they choose to work with a local authority.
Okay.
And I know that for some of I think with these first 2 facilities, the administration has decided to work with a local authority, and the benefit there is that, and that is not the housing authority. And I know that people have gotten, tangled up in the term local authority, in equating that to public housing, and that's not what it is. It's a separate entity, and there are multiple entities like this within the city, or any city, who they do that kind of work. So facilities could team with them. So APS would team with that local authority. The local authority would do what they do best, which is help write up the RFP, issue it, collect them all, and then they would have previously had decided on some sort of criteria of how to evaluate that. But that, again, is, administrative details. What I'm trying to ensure is that it's open, transparent, open to anybody that wants to bid, and that the community gets contacted first. I realize this is a strange situation where it started before this happened, and it is what it is. But moving forward, what I want to see is, before a developer or anybody who's interested in a property, goes to the community, because our policy says the board shall engage the public. And so what I'm tasking administration with, or asking them to, I can't task them with anything, is do something where you get with the community first, and we together collectively identify if it's going to be mixed use, residential, and commercial, right? And then you go, great, it's going to be mixed use, residential, and commercial. Then the local authority writes the RFP, they put it out on the street, Mr. Ali bids on it, with everybody else, or puts in his proposal, and then I don't know how they come up, but whatever they select, this is currently how they do it, whatever they decide to do, they propose it to the board. So the board can't vote on anything that the administration doesn't put in front of us. So that's how that works.
So you said the board can't vote on anything that the administration doesn't put in front of the board. So in order to be transparent, they should put everything before the board, or allow the community to evaluate their criteria for making that particular decision on what to propose to the board. Because it becomes a little unfair at some particular point. If the board is only seeing what the administration puts before them, there could be other potential developers that would have qualified.
Yes, so I think that the board recognizes that it wants to have, set some sort of guidelines or parameters around the terms of the RFP, and also the evaluation criteria, but ultimately that is going to be up to the administration. That's one of those things where that is squarely an administrative function, but I think setting the parameters and the purpose as a board, that public land for public use and public land in public hands, to me is very important. And we have not had a process like this in the past, and no sort of criteria whatsoever. So that's what I think we owe it, because these are the people's things, and I think we owe it to the people.
Okay. Changing just a little bit, why should teachers support you?
Why should teachers support me? I am committed to making sure that the teachers have the resources in the school that they want, and that they're getting what they need. And we have heard from them. We have heard, we gave them, raises, this last go around, not nearly enough.
The governor gave him some
The governor
good
gave him
raises, too.
some, and then we gave, some more on top of that, which was way overdue. What we have not done enough, though, is push enough money into the schools because,
or benefits.
or benefits.
That's
Well,
a
the
big
benefits
thing,
and
yeah.
health insurance, yes, we're paying a lot more for that this year. But more money in the schools makes for a better work environment. When teachers are resourced, we hear this all the time. They don't want any more professional development. They want resources. They need to take care of what they need to take care of. The other things they tell us, because we do talk to teachers and we hear from them, are they want to have more respect. They want to have fewer district mandated assessments and tests. They want to be able to pick their professional development. I fully support that. But the other thing we see when they leave is they fill out an exit survey. So we've got hundreds of them. And we've seen where they rank all the things, for reasons for
How
leaving.
long have those exit surveys been in effect? Because we pushed for that for many years.
Yeah, it's been in the last several years, I know.
And are they shared with anyone else besides the one?
It's been shared publicly at a board meeting, and I can get those for you.
No, I just wanted.
Okay.
I wanted everybody else to hear this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. So, and the exit surveys show that, yes, compensation is important, but it's probably about fifth or sixth on the list. And number one was leadership. And it doesn't differentiate between district leadership and school leadership.
Mm-hmm.
But leadership was an issue. Some other things that were issues were commute times. We know that, we have a crisis of affordability in the city, and our teachers more and more can't live here.
Did the survey ask about discipline and
Yes.
problems with students?
Yes.
What did teachers say to you?
It was not, it was higher than compensation. So I think
that's right, because we do our surveys, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was, I think it was probably number 3. It was pretty high.
It's up there. And the other problem is the administrative problems with how
Yes.
they're treated.
Correct.
And that's been for years and months and Sundays. So with about 6 different employee organizations and the ability for people to belong to nothing, how do you navigate in terms of hearing from teachers? Because many times teachers won't fill out information because of fear.
That's
or
right.
because they say, look, I'm leaving here anyway. Don't make me any difference. I know when we talked to some people from Teach for America years ago at Thayer High School, and I was in a room, oh God, Jesus. I asked, it was about 25 folk in there, and I asked, who's from Teach for America? About a half of them. How many people plan to stay past 5 years? And hands went down. In other words, I'm gonna get my loans paid off and I'm out of the door. Now, a few Teach for America people hang around. I'm not trying to bash Teach for America for that, but people saw an opportunity, they got paid for. So what is actually being done about the problems of that we know of? Their administrative abuse. Teachers will complain about that. Top-down management, discipline problems with children, and because we're asking schools to do and be everything, which I think is unfair. But what actually is being done comprehensively, or what should we do? And especially when there are so many voices speaking for teachers.
There's a lot of people purporting to speak for teachers, but what I want to do, the same with every other stakeholder group, but especially the teachers, is actually give them that platform. Like, I don't need to be their microphone. I need to hand them the microphone so that they have their voice heard. And that's why I advocate for making some of these, governance bodies formal advisory bodies, because we need to have that voice of the teacher. Because, yes, there are like teacher advisory groups, but I hear what you're saying. That's what we hear. Is that our guardrail
And it's hard to get them to speak up?
about climate and culture because they fear retaliation and intimidation. There's a climate of fear, and that has to change. And so
people said it was under Beverly Hall, but I said it wasn't, because I came, way before Beverly Hall. It just
been here for a
persists
long time.
For a long time.
yeah, that's
and it
been one of those
continues.
constants.
Mhm.
Is this, and I think a lot of it comes from a mistaken notion of accountability. Because we're hard on people and very soft on process, and I think that's not right. So it's that piece, and also, what was I just thinking of? Accountability and,
Do you think?
here again, just, being so caught up in having to prove that you're succeeding, you know, because
When the standards keep changing.
yeah, but what we know is you can't ever get better until you acknowledge what, like, oh, okay, we got to tackle that. And there's been such, because of this hyper focus on, you know, accountability means find out who did something wrong.
I got you.
You see what I mean?
Approach, yeah.
You know, whereas we all need to be looking at, hey, this isn't looking so good. Like what we just discovered, where, you know, our reading proficiency levels are, there. It's a public health crisis. It really is. And one of the things we learned is, you know,
How did that come to your attention
how?
about reading deficits?
Because it's been that way for 20 years.
But how all of a sudden people are ramping it up now. It's almost like the flavor of the month again. I'm glad to see it.
Well, that's what
but
I ran.
I want to know where it's coming from.
That's
now.
what I ran on 2 years ago, and I can't take credit for this. But I came in saying, you know, we have to do something about literacy, and I said we have to have a board literacy policy. Pushback I get is, that's not the board's job.
And be comprehensive about it.
Yes, it is. You know.
All right. So now, I'm sorry.
No,
I
you-
want
no,
you to
you're
tell
good.
me on just in one sentence for each one of these groups that I'm going to name.
One sentence, okay.
Yeah. Or two. Why should labor support you or not support you? Organized labor.
Because I want to create the work conditions that lets people get their job done. My mother worked in the school cafeteria when I was in school. And fortunately, she was in a union state. So she got to enjoy the benefits of pay and benefits that were negotiated for her.
What state?
Connecticut. That's when we lived in Connecticut.
Different ball game, isn't it?
And I know
Y'all
how
hear that,
important
teachers?
that
You hear
is.
that? You hear that? Okay, all right. Okay. So you, so why would organized labor not vote for you?
I guess because I'm not a teacher and I'm not in one of their groups.
Okay. Maybe they don't know you. Put it that way.
They don't.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't.
Okay, let's talk about people who are concerned about mass transportation in the city. I know that they don't vote for it because we know how people are appointed to MARTA. But let's just say the MARTA board, the whole MARTA board, could decide if you win or lose. Why would they vote for you and why would they not?
I mean, having a healthy public transit system is key to having a healthy city. I mean, being an urban planner, you know, there are critical dimensions of healthy communities. And transportation is one of them. Access to food is another one. Safe, you know, affordable places to live, education, employment opportunities, recreation. I mean, it is a key component to a healthy city. One of the other task forces I sit on is the Beltline Affordable Housing Advisory Board. And so we have a lot of conversations in that one about transit and the need for it.
About what percentage of our students do you know use public transportation as opposed to the school buses?
I don't have a quantification of that.
Okay, they'll be interested to know, and also parents.
Yeah.
They'll be very interested because I think that Atlanta has one of the highest paid CEOs, guy from Canada here, in the nation. And that our MARTA bus drivers have just come up a little, and they are now tied as the lowest paid in the nation. I hope everybody heard that. Hello. Okay. Why would, this is a hot one. I haven't asked anybody else these questions. Why would Governor Brian Kemp not vote for you, and why would Brian Kemp support you? What do you think would be in the interest of this governor to support you or not support you? He can't vote for you, though. I'm just saying.
Brian Kemp would vote for me because of how deeply I'm committed to this literacy piece. That is the one thing that it's going to take the entire city. It's going to take the entire state. I appreciate the bipartisan focus on, you know, turning attention to the science of reading. I want us to fund the training, please. Legislators out there, it's nice to have passed that, but we really need the funding to train our teachers and our administrators. That's why he would vote for me. Why he wouldn't vote for me? Maybe because I live in the city. I don't know.
Okay. What about the City Chamber of Commerce?
I think the Chamber of Commerce would vote for me because, you know, I'm a member of the Urban Land Institute. All of the things I've worked with a variety of the different organizations trying to build a healthy, you know, equitable city. And, you know, one of the things that's really concerning to me, and I understand, you know, pockets of affordability are an issue, but we have families that have to leave the city. And we have to find a way to keep us all here, keep us healthy, provide opportunities to every part of the city, not just some. So yeah, I think they would completely support me.
What about the faith-based community?
Sure. I mean, I met with a group of pastors in the West Side, just last week. I think the faith-based community is also a very key part of, pulling all in the same direction, because it's going to take the whole city. It's going
Why
to
would
take
they
all
not
of us.
support you? Tell me, why would you think? If you could think of any reason why they wouldn't support you, can you think of?
No.
Okay. All right.
So I get the first chance at
Wait,
these
wait,
questions.
one more thing. CARES Act money in Atlanta public schools. How much did we receive? Do you know?
That's a quiz question. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a lot.
A lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
Did we turn any of it back to the federal government?
I'm not aware of us turning CARES money back. I mean, it could have been. I do know that we're running out. This is our last year of it. I do fear that we don't have a lot to show for what we did with it.
That was going to be my next question.
Because
Those
we really
millions of
haven't.
dollars.
We really have not progressed. Some of the ways we spent it. Here again, we've spent an extra 30 minutes for the last 3 years. In elementary school, and I really haven't seen. You would expect that with that you would see a higher level of growth at the elementary level versus say the middle school level, and we don't see it.
Maybe, because some of these programs that we are buying, we already know as teachers they're not going to work. It's somebody
That's
getting a
correct.
contract, somebody making some money,
That's
and
absolutely
they sound good, selling them a bunch of stuff.
I want to add one to your list.
All right, go ahead.
And we can tie it to my second
Go
question
ahead.
after this. Why would the business community vote for you?
Why would the business community vote for me? Because having a healthy school system is part of having a healthy city, and the education system affects our ability to attract business. But also, I firmly believe that APS as a public entity also has an obligation to the public and to serving, being the stewards of public assets that we are, we have to own that. And I firmly believe that we have to play our part.
Second question. Entrepreneurship, I think, is a very, very vital role in the economy and in the communities. What initiatives would you take to bring entrepreneurship back into the school system?
For the students?
For the students.
Oh, I think that would be, phenomenal opportunities to, it's a lens through which you can teach almost any subject. Just getting a business started, having them do a mock business, having them open real businesses, getting real world experience before you get out into the real world is incredibly important. So one of the things I'm focused on is trying to make sure we have all of those advancement and acceleration opportunities for all our students, no matter what school they go to. And I think that what we've learned from COVID and some of these things that we've learned from entrepreneurs in the city have really broadened our horizons about how we can make sure we're meeting every kid, no matter what door they walk through the building to get into, with the opportunities that they can use to thrive.
Are there plans on the table right now, or can you all put plans on the table to make sure there are viable entrepreneurship and vocational training programs in every high school? Because we don't have those many high schools, but.
No, I think the Atlanta College and Career Academy has done a good job. We have, the enrollment of that is continuing to grow.
What's the enrollment right now?
It's well over 600 at this point. I mean, it is, I wanted to say 900, but don't quote me.
How do you get into the school?
You just apply.
And if they don't have enough seats, what happens?
Oh, they have enough seats. So
Okay.
the biggest impediment for the College and Career Academy is scheduling. So it's scheduling at your home school. So what it is it's not its own school. What you do is you still are in your home school. You leave there and go for part of a day, a couple of days a week, right? So that you can earn your training in aviation mechanics or cosmetology or, whatever it is. I mean, they've got tremendous,
As an elective, correct?
no, because some of them count towards,
Okay.
so there's nothing that is elective. Like everything counts for some graduation requirement.
This is just me being an entrepreneur. I wish it was mandated that all the kids have to go through an entrepreneurship program to learn a little about businesses. It would only make things better.
But I'm excited about the prospects. So no, every school, like, that's what I think the College and Career Academy can do, but I think that we can get far more nimble and creative and innovative, and that's another way that, potentially, to help, some of the teachers out, in figuring out how do we, make some of those opportunities available for kids.
We have a lot of resources here in the Atlanta
We do.
University system,
We
Georgia
sure
State
do.
University. A lot of resources. Well, anything you would like to wrap up to say finally to the voters?
Just that we really do have, in the city of Atlanta, I would call it a civic health crisis. So for a really long period of time, at least almost 20 years, currently 2/3 of our 3rd through 8th graders do not read proficiently, and that is the violation of civil rights, in my opinion. And we can do this. We've seen it happen, but it's going to take everyone. It's going to take us all reaching together across the city. We have to unite, not divide. And I'm making an appeal to everyone to come together, do whatever you can. If you want to have a reading group, if you want to have a little free library, if you want to donate books, if you want to get involved in our literacy effort, we're going to be having a panel discussion coming up in the next couple of weeks with some experts to talk about the role of board policy, and also the role of community buy-in. So one of the things we're doing with this policy is putting the community engagement up front, because we know it's going to take everyone. So it's my invitation to the city of Atlanta to come together and make this city a city of well-supported readers.
No, I haven't said anything at the end, but make sure you let everyone know what books Atlanta Public Schools cannot offer to students. Okay? We don't want anybody in trouble, like up in Cobb County and et cetera, interpreting what folks should be reading and not. But if there are books that you all know of, that's a good task force right there. Regardless if the public disagrees, but these are the ones that we know we're going to have some problems with.
We just currently had a presentation for media services, talking about our media services, and they explained the sort of complaint process. And so one of the first things I did when I was on the board was help author the resolution opposing the divisive concepts legislation. And as a result of that legislation, we had to write a process. We were required to. So what we did was we took from that resolution, basically affirming the right of all of our kids to know the truth. And to learn the truth.
And let's just suppose none of that stood. It stood in terms of what the state is pushing down. Then there are things that parents can do, and there are things that we can do in the community to make sure that our kids know what real truth is.
So one of the things they can do is look out for calls for people to volunteer to be on the media advisory group. But it's that group that if somebody complains about a book, we have a group that's comprised of teachers, parents, community members, and everything, so that they can, say, okay, let's see if this is really something. So look out
before
for getting.
we fire somebody.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
okay.
So
Yeah.
have people, keep their ears open, because there will be, each school will have one, and then there will be a district level one.
I do want to add something. We have some real good principals, and we have some that never should darken a door, but there are few. Principals, and we don't represent my organization, administration, but many of these principals are flat overloaded, and we need to start talking comprehensively about how to help these principals out with other administrators, and perhaps some audits might be due now, so we can see where some of that money is, because Atlanta Public Schools has plenty of money. People say, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough. Oh yeah, yes, we do. It's where we're placing it. And many of us don't know how to read those budgets, and they're almost as thick as a phone book. All right.
So some of the things we could do with that is that management style, the management approach, and moving from something of compliance and enforcement, which we've been in that rut for a long time, to one of support. And so that is what we need. That's what we owe to our principals, is less of, are you checking all the boxes? Have you complied? And more of, how can I help you? And that's the role of central office.
Okay.
All right. We want to thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms.
All right.
Jones.
Okay.